Simon, it was no great shock, but it's now official. 71-year-old Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the billionaire, has formally completed the deal for minority shareholding. Yes. And the agreement gives Ineos Sporting control despite the Glazers retaining a majority stake. Mm-hmm. So in he comes. Should we be open-mouthed at the figures here that he has bought 27.7% of shares in the club, reducing the stake of the Glazer family in a purchase that values United at over £5 billion?
Yeah, we should be open-mouthed because I thought they wanted 6. So ultimately, they've not got what they wanted. Look, I mean, he's achieved apparently his life's aim after wanting to buy Barcelona, wanting to buy Chelsea. He's alighted upon Man United because that's his football club that he supports, despite making protestations about believing that the change of direction was Barcelona was his destiny and ultimately Chelsea was a football club that he wanted to own. Look, the bottom line is you've got a commercial thinking man coming into the football club, focusing in conjunction with the Glazers. They've got a division of labour. He's suggesting that he can look at the football operation for them because that's the area that they're failing in. The commercial side of the football club, they don't need his help on that. They've already rinsed every single shekel out of every single commercial opportunity they possibly can. So there's no issue with their commercial monetisation of the proposition. Their clear issue is they don't have the best in class in dugouts, in football operations, in recruitment. And that is where they believe that, or Jim Ratcliffe believes, with Dave Brailsford and whoever else they're going to bring in, Dan Ashworth, that they're going to shake this tree. Yeah. And out of it will come a better operation. We will see. Yeah. We will see. There's nothing in the Ineos backstory that suggests that they are, in pursuit of the golden fleece elsewhere. Mm. So we will see. For me, at this moment in time, for those that are dissenting towards the Glazers, which is a significant part of the Man United fan base, it's anybody but the Glazers. In a year's time, when they haven't got precisely what they expect, and by the way, what they're entitled to, all these supporter groups and fans, Jim Ratcliffe will have his own challenges there.
Well, I tell you what, Simon, he's had plenty of time to think about what he's going to do. Because we've yet to hear from him on this show, and at some stage we will. We assure you of that. But back in 2022, Sir Jim Ratcliffe spoke at a Q&A event with the Financial Times entitled Leading Through Disruption. Back then, he had a clear view on why Manchester United were not as competitive then as they should be.
I think the answer about performance of Manchester United is a simple one, really, that the biggest correlation in success in football is money, without question. It's not the only correlation, because you've got outliers like Brighton. Okay, but the biggest correlation by far is if you've got the highest revenues, you can afford the best players, you play the best football. Yeah? And Manchester United is one of those, it was one of those top 3 clubs. You had the 2 in Spain, Madrid and Barca, and you had Manchester United, and they all had revenues of about 800 million. There's a few more have joined that club now, of course, because you've got Bayern Munich, you've got PSG, I can hardly say it, Manchester City. Yeah. And, Liverpool are a little bit closer. But Manchester United are not playing in that league. They're not playing in the league of those other teams at the moment. And they haven't done for quite some years now, really, since Sir Alex stepped down. They're not firing on all cylinders.
So that was then, Danny, and this is now. And what he's saying now, what he's saying today is this. It's just the beginning of our journey to take Manchester United back to the top of English, European and world football with world-class facilities for our fans. Work to achieve those objectives will accelerate from today. Not just it starts today, it accelerates.
Well,
today.
They'll do well not to improve things a little bit, won't they? That would be hard work because there's so much not going well or not gone well, whether it be recruitment, whether it be rejuvenation of the training ground, the stadium, all those things. So there will be improvement, and quickly, because it's an easy thing to achieve. But to get to the promised land, which is back to winning Premier League titles and Champions Leagues, that's going to be a few years down the line. Absolutely. They're not going to be doing that next year. If United fans think the beginning of next season, here we go, they're going to be competitive and winning the league and winning the Champions League, no. You can't.
It's not as immediate as that.
No, you can't turn a squad around that quickly. That needs a lot of work and cute business, because it's not just about bringing players in. I'm sure Simon will tell you, you've got to get players out as well. There's a lot of players at Man United earn a lot of money. that they'll have to pay to go.
So now he's in, Simon. What do we see? I mean, United fans listening to us this morning, they've heard him there. They've heard his voice. They're anticipating change. Spectacular change that's going to take United to the very top. Ratcliffe's saying it himself. What can they expect, Simon?
I don't really know. I mean, ultimately, it's like an ocean liner. They don't turn particularly quickly. And United have got to not only get themselves in order, they've got to overcome people that are in order, are in the groove, that are established, that are very good at what they're doing, which is Manchester City. So this is not just about what Man United are going to do. Man United can only worry about what they can do. That's the job of anyone that's got half a brain, is concentrate on your strengths rather than the opposition's and build up your resources. But even if they get themselves right, they're not sitting in isolation. They're not an island on their own that if they get themselves right, it automatically falls into line that they'll be back at the top of the tree, because the world has changed. Irrespective of the competition of the late 90s and early 2000s, which was predominantly Arsenal, and the emergence of Chelsea, you've now got a raft of football clubs that have economically well heeled with very resourceful owners. You've got a football club that's dominated English football, is dominating English football like no other.
Right.
Put aside what United have done. Put aside that United were the poster boys of English football in the Premier League. Manchester City are dominating English football and laying everything to waste.
Can I ask you something just before we hit the brakes? I haven't asked you this. Obviously, the guy knows what he's doing. Does he impress you when you hear him?
Am I impressed by his work over the years as a leading industrialist? Undeniably. Am I impressed by his utterings and witterings as a new owner of Manchester United or a new minority shareholder, which all of it, not particularly. You know, he is going through the gears. You know, the fact that he's effective. If a new broom in an environment doesn't sweep clean, then it's an old broom from Only Fools and Horses with 17 different handles and 10 different heads. The bottom line is I expect to hear stuff. Because, look, anything you hear from Jim Ratcliffe is an is an increase in what you've heard from Glazers. Because you've heard nothing from the Glazers. I think you heard once upon a time a 30-second interview with Malcolm Glazer, and you've had a tiny little bit from Joel Glazer on a couple of occasions. Most of the time it's pushing a camera away. Right. If Ratcliffe is making... He's playing to the gallery. I mean, they're not playing football in a barn. You know, the room was leaking. The Old Trafford was leaking 10 years ago. These things become more prevalent when your side isn't performing. The training ground. I had Tim Sherwood tell me about this wonderful training ground at Tottenham and how it had wonderful things and this, that and the other, but the team ain't one bugger all. Training grounds are just a weaponisation of the fact that a team isn't performing on a pitch. You'd never hear about any of this stuff if the team was performing. Now, you've got to get all these ingredients right. So he's playing to the gallery. He's sitting down with these delightful supporter organisations that are entitled to have their view and will anoint him.
That's a good move.
Well, anoint him. Yeah, well, listen to them and then ignore them and do what you want in the longer game. That's what happens in the real world. You listen to those, you take what you need from them, you listen to what they have to say, and then you go about your business doing what you need to do, which is trying to make sure that the football club that you've invested your own money, or whether you've borrowed against the shares, who knows, we'll find out in due course, and what you're going to do with that.
How soon before they win the Premier League?
Well, we asked, what's his face? I prefer to refer to him as what's his face, Ed
Woodward.
Did he think that they would win the Premier League within 5 years? And he said yes, he thought they would. Right. But then what credibility does he have in terms of Manchester United? So do I think he wins the Premier League anytime soon? Not unless there's a massive decline in some other people's back gardens. Okay.
Simon, quite a lot of people suggesting, Sir Jim, you've got a lot of work to do at Manchester United. Tony, a Liverpool fan, is one of them. Liverpool and Manchester City are levels above Manchester United. Liverpool have upgraded all physical infrastructure. Our academy is churning out top players for Klopp. We have no worries. No worries.
Different clubs with different dynamics. I mean, Liverpool don't spend the kind of money that Manchester United spend. They haven't been able to. They tend to spend the money that they recoup. Their real kick-on was the ability to have sold Coutinho and then buy Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, which gave them a side that could then move up through the gears and win the things that they've won. I think it's a forced comparison between Liverpool and Man United. So you're looking at two different ends of a spectrum. United will spend lots and lots of money, and that's why Ashworth's appointment and all that goes with that, and the £20 million compensation will be money well spent if he is what he's cracked up to be, because they'll buy better players with better diligence, with better understanding of what it's like to play at Man United. The interesting thing will be, irrespective of all the background noise about Jim Ratcliffe, this culture at Man United, if they can change the culture, because the culture's wrong.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The culture comes from the manager. Doesn't come from the owner.
Well, I would say I think that's probably naive. because
That's what I've
ultimately,
experienced.
well, yeah, because you've been myopic. You've lived in a little bubble. The culture is set by a standard bearer. The person at the top of the tree influences the thinking, and then they put
Only by delegation.
well, everything's by delegation. The
No. The manager influence. The manager.
Everything's by delegation. The manager doesn't kick the ball in the back of the net, does he? He delegates that to a centre forward. Everything is about standard. So if you've got the right standards at the top, you employ the right people in the dugout,
Yeah.
and the right people in the dugout by the right players, and away you go. And people understand what it's like to play for a great football club like Man United, and get the realisation of that.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.